From Boston, Crockett's Victory Garden.
Well, it's pea picking time in Crockett's Victory Garden. I'm Jim Crockett, and I want to tell you that this is the first variety that we planted, one called Alaska. Grows about 30 inches tall. Is one of those smooth seeded peas which is supposed to be not as sweet as the crinkled seeded ones. And it isn't. The secret is to get them while they're still tiny, and they're just as sweet as can be. No sense in letting them get old and tough. That's one of the advantages of growing them here in your own garden. I should say that next to it, I have another old-time variety called Little Marvel. It's been around for generations, not quite as early. It'll be ready in about another week. Planted at the same time that the Alaska was. And here these were covered by snowstorms at least twice in the 80 days that they have been planted. It's a little too late to plant peas in most parts of the country right now until mid-August. Then we'll plant another crop here, and we'll be picking peas in the fall just as we are now in the spring. Well, today the warm weather has finally arrived. We're going to set out cucumbers, melons, eggplants, and peppers that we started a month ago in a hotbed to get them of a good size and save a month's growing period. Then I'm going to talk to you about some of my favorite herbs, and I'm going to show you how to make a garden nursery. But first, I want to blanch a cauliflower. Now, this variety of cauliflower is one called Snow Crown. And Snow Crown is an all-America selection. You can take a look at the size of the curd on the inside, roughly the size of a large teacup now, and it's ready for blanching. But you perhaps notice in looking at the plant that some of these leaves are wilted. Well, we were a little foolhardy when we set these seedlings out this spring. We didn't put any diazin on the soil, and some of the cabbage root maggots got on it and ate off some of the roots. Well, finally we put some diazin on, hilled some soil up around so the plant would make new roots, which it seems to be doing. We're getting a crop out of them, but this does happen if you don't use diazin on the soil. You often get this cabbage root maggot chewing on the roots. What I'm going to do now is blanch it. And all we're going to do here is to pull the leaves together like this into a little top knot. And I'm going to use a twist-em to tie around like that. I'm going to shield it from the light. And by so doing, we will preserve the tenderness of that, the flower buds, which are the edible part of the cauliflower. That will double in size in just a week's time, be ready for picking in just about a week from now. Remember that cauliflower likes cool, moist, springtime conditions. We grow another crop in the fall, but it's too late to plant them now for the summer. Now let's look at a nursery bed. I've been saying for a long time that you should always have in your garden a few seedlings coming along so that you can plug up any vacancies that occur as you harvest a crop. For example, we always have lettuce seedlings at various sizes so that whenever one crop comes up, we can put in a quick crop of lettuce. I've made a very special kind of a seed bed here. This was a cold frame used last winter and this spring. I've sifted the soil through a ½ inch mesh, and it still has some coarseness to it, but no really big lumps. Makes a fine seed bed for starting seeds. I've firmed it. Remember that seeds must be in firm contact with the soil if they are to grow. What the seed bed does, of course, is to give a protection from the elements. If I know a thunderstorm that would arrive this afternoon, I'd come out and put a plastic cover over here to keep from pushing the seeds into the ground or drowning them. Here I'm going to use a little marker, just a piece of wood about 2 feet long with a bevel on the bottom of it. If you push down, make a fine little trench to put your seeds in. Well, I've put some other trenches over here and show you what we have already planted. A Brussels sprouts, called Jade Cross, which we'll begin to pick in the latter part of September. You see, you'd really have to plan ahead in gardening. And then here is a cauliflower called Early Purple Head. Well, it's strange that it's called Early Purple Head because it takes 120 days to mature, and again, we'll be picking that in October. This is a new cabbage I'm about to plant, which won't come out till 1977, called Savoy Ace, an All-America winner. And believe me, if you'll stick with some of these All-America winners, you'll be sure to have good crops in your garden. Sow the seeds very sparingly, just like that, and don't crowd them together, because once the seedlings come up, you may have to leave them in the bed a little longer than you'd like to. And if you do have them sown rather thinly, they won't crowd one another. Now I'm covering them with just plain sand, dry sand. The reason for that is the sand will tend to deter this damping off fungus, which has a way of killing seedlings. It also is light. The seedlings can push their way right through it. We'll simply take this little board, tap it down like that, and they have all, they've been firmed into the soil. Now, we'll give these a little drink of water. I like to use a watering can with a very fine rose on it, like that, so the water won't arrive like a great big flood. Now, in a few days, those will be up and growing. Before I leave this area, I must tell you that right now, in early summer, is the time to buy your seeds of the biennials and perennials that you would like to have blossom for next year. Pansies, sweet williams, delphiniums, things of that nature for next year. This is the time to get your seed bed ready, get your seeds, we'll plant them in the next couple of months. Now, I want to go back here in this area and plant some squash and pumpkins. Soil preparation is very, very important for these crops because they are big feeders. They really and truly need the nourishment. I dug a hole a couple of feet across and 1.5 feet deep, filled it full of compost and some cow manure and peat moss and soil, a very rich combination, and have added a little slow-release fertilizer, which you may see here on the surface of the ground. Those little granules are material called osmocote. As the moisture hits them, they gradually dissolve and allow nutrients to go into the soil over a period of many months. The first crop that I'm going to grow here is a winter squash called Golden Nugget. It's about the size of your fists, your two fists together, weigh about 1 pound each, and are great for baking just as they are. Then you can take the seeds out after they're through baking. The trick in sowing these is simply put, say, 6 seeds like that around in a little circle. I do, no special reason. Poke them in the ground about 1 inch deep with your finger, and they're planted. Nothing else to do. Cover them over like that. Now, most of those seeds will come up. All of them will not be of the same strength. I will sacrifice all but the 2 strongest seedlings. They will provide a beautiful canopy of foliage and all the fruit that this one area can provide. Golden Nugget is a bush-type winter squash, foliage about 3 feet across. Every plant will give 4 to 6 big, beautiful, bright yellow squashes. Now, ordinary pumpkins make vines that are as much as 15 or 20 feet long, so I'm growing a bush-type pumpkin. This one called Cinderella. And Cinderella seeds look pink because the seedsman put a little caftan on them. No trick again, just put in 6 of them like that and push them in the soil. Again, we will save only the 2 larger plants, and to get the biggest pumpkin from a vine, save only 1 fruit on a vine and pull off all the other blossoms after that 1 fruit has set. All the energy will go that way. Now I have a vining winter squash, my favorite, called Waltham butternut. Now that's the one that has a beige skin shaped about like a banjo with a little seed cavity down at one end. Easy to peel, delicious flavor, and has the attribute which a lot of gardeners would appreciate, and that is that it is rather resistant to the squash wilt, or I should say the squash vine borer that causes the wilt. And this one is resistant, will grow beautifully and make a nice crop. Now the next thing, I'll let them trail out across the lawn. Next thing I want to do is to talk about peppers, but I do want you to see here how my corn is coming along. It's more than doubled in size in just a week's time. That's what rich soil and some sunshine will do to make them grow. Now today most of the crops I'm planting are those that like good warm soil, and here we come to peppers. I should say right away that these plants are probably larger than what you can buy in most garden centers, but probably not larger than those that you grew yourself on your own windowsill, because we have given each plant a flower pot to grow in rather than crowd them into a little six-pack. This variety is one called Bellboy, a very firm, chunky type of fruit. Put the plants about 18 inches apart. This soil is rich. We've put some cow manure and compost, 5-10-5 fertilizer in here, and really built up the nourishment for them. You notice I'm making a little depression around here to hold moisture. We'll add water right into here, and we'll show you just exactly how that will work. This water, by the way, has some liquid fertilizer in it. I'll give these plants a quick boost. You see, that concentrates the water at the root system. I want to get rid of cutworms without using insecticides, so I make collars. A piece of material 14 inches long, 2.5 inches wide, stapled together. A couple of weeks ago I showed you how to make them out of cardboard. Now we're using a building paper called 25-pound felt, which lasts well through the season. So we pull the leaves up like this and drop them over, and the cutworms simply can't crawl over it. We have another type of pepper here we'll plant. That's a variety called Earliest Red Sweet. Bright red fruit fairly early in the season. Now the next thing that I'd like to do is to go over and plant some eggplants. And the eggplants, again, things that like very warm temperatures. These plants I started from seed just 9 weeks ago. You can see this variety is the Burpee hybrid. I wish it contrast these two plants. There's the Burpee hybrid there, and the Stokes early hybrid here. The Burpee hybrid has light-colored foliage. The Stokes early hybrid has darker foliage and darker stems. This particular one, the Stokes early hybrid, has pear-shaped fruit, and the Burpee has egg-shaped fruit. Both are purple, and remember, when you pick them, don't wait until they get too big. Pick them while the fruit itself is bright and shiny. The plants are about 18 inches apart for both peppers and eggplants. Again, how easy it is to make a little depression to hold the moisture. Your collar over the top is just as simple as that. We'll set another one right in here. This soil is good and rich. So, you know, so many times I get questions and I think, gee, if the person who wrote this question had only prepared his soil well, he would never have had the question in the first place. Soil preparation, I guess, and sunshine, those are the two keys to growing a good crop of vegetables. Now the next warm weather crop that I want to plant are cucumbers and cantaloupes. And I must say that I begrudge growing these crops, this type of a crop, out in my open garden, because you know how those vines spread along the ground. They'll take an area easily 10 feet wide. So I grow them upright on a fence. And I'll put some netting up against this fence so they'll grow up here 6 or 8 feet tall. The fruit, by the way, will be absolutely perfect on all sides. Good air circulation so the vines have relatively little disease and they'll have very high production. The way to get high production is this: a rich soil and plenty of moisture and sunshine. I've had questions on cucumbers. Why are my cucumbers bitter? They won't be bitter if you'll put plenty of nutrients in the soil, a lot of organic matter, and plenty of moisture. Now here we've put in some horse manure because we couldn't get some cow manure, and we put some compost and peat moss. We laid a piece of black plastic on the soil and tucked the edges in, just as you see here. Now this black plastic has warmed the soil, just as warm as toast under there, and that will get those plants off and growing very rapidly. Now, I started these seedlings just 1 month ago in 3-inch peat pots, 1 seed to a pot, and you notice what I'm doing. I'm peeling off the top of that peat pot because if it's allowed to protrude above the surface of the soil, it will act as a wick, and the moisture will evaporate into the soil, into the air. No trick in plastic, you don't have to cut it, just use your trowel, jab it in like that, and set the plant in. Now what we'll do here in watering is to put the end of a garden hose in here and give this a drink now or any time during the summer. Another one to show you how easy this is: peel off your plastic, your peat pot like this, cut through the plastic with your trowel, just as soft as can be, and slip those in. Of course, you see, you hold in the moisture, you trap the heat with the plastic, and also you take care of the weed problem. I'd like to go over with you the varieties that I've planted here so that you can see what we're growing. We're growing one type of cantaloupe this year, one which we grew last year, called ambrosia. Certainly it was well named. It's an orange-fleshed cantaloupe, very, very sweet flavored. For the cucumbers, we have 4 different kinds. I can't resist this one called burpless or burpless hybrid. Very long, slender, sweet-tasting fruit. The skin is just as edible, I guess, as the fruit itself. Quite an old-time variety called Satakoi. Now, Satakoi has the advantage of giving fruit over a long, long season. I like that one. This is ordinary type of shaped cucumber. And this one is new to me this year, called Sweet Slice. The name is intriguing. I guess you've seen again and again, I grow something new to me at least, every season in the garden. Then we have one called Market More, an old-time variety that the commercial men use. Train them right up here on nets and let them grow from there. Well, I said I'd talk to you about herbs, but herbs have been used for perfume or for flavor in cooking for thousands and thousands of years, and I'm only going to talk about a handful of my favorites that you can use in cooking. And I'm going to begin with this clump right here of dill. Self-sown seedlings. Very important that the second year the plants are apt to be stronger growing than those that you sow the first time. This is quite expensive, $2 a pound for this in the store. 5 years ago you couldn't find it in the store. Now the commercial men are growing this by the fieldful because it's become so popular. Then of course everyone knows about parsley. Parsley not only is useful as a garnish and in cooking, but the plant itself is a biennial. It will make nothing but leaves for its first years of growth. Second season, it sends up a flower stalk with seeds, which we're not interested in usually. But these plants, besides producing here all summer, can be dug up and put in a flower pot and put on a windowsill. You'll have fresh parsley all winter long. And I guess the next most important one to most gardeners is basil. I have the green-leafed one, the typical one, and the purple-leafed one called dark opal. If there is a trick in growing basil, it's this. Don't let it go to seed. In other words, this is the kind of a thing to use up. Pick off the seed pods like that, and it continues to make more leaves. There's a kind of a zinnia called cut and come again. Well, I would say that basil is a cut and come again type of herb, and the fragrance is truly remarkable. It's a delight to grow and a delight in the kitchen as well. Now let's talk about 2 or 3 other kinds of herbs that you may know about. This one I'm growing in a pot. This is rosemary. In some parts of the country, this is perfectly hardy. Other northern areas, it is not. Don't need much of this in a garden. It likes a dry area. The scent of the leaves is accentuated if the soil is relatively dry, and that applies to these 2 other herbs. All of these come from the Mediterranean region. This one is the true thyme, an old plant that we've cut back and saved the top. You know, those dried leaves are great, but you can also have the fresh ones. Another one which can grow on your windowsill in the wintertime and have fresh thyme. Here we have one called summer savory. The very name savory will give you an idea of how many, of just what this will do in the kitchen, let's say. Such a delightful scent to use in many kinds of cooking. I have 2 other herbs that you should see while I'm right here. This is the one called tarragon, sometimes called French tarragon. I'm growing it in a pot because I would like to emphasize the fact that even though you don't have a big garden space, you can grow herbs. So often you see the tarragon used along with vinegar to give a special fragrance. And then another one, which I like to grow in a container because it's so rambunctious, and that is mint. Now, mint, of course, is delightfully fragrant, but it likes rich soil and a lot of moisture as contrasted to these other plants. But given those conditions, it will really take over your garden if you're not careful. And so I grow it in a container, and I would suggest that you do likewise. You can plunge the container in your garden if you want to, but confine those roots so it doesn't take over. Well, I think we have a little time now for questions. Every week I think we're going to have more time for questions than we really end up with, but let's see what we can get to today. Well, the first one is from Boston. I understand that any fool can grow radishes. Well, I can't. Again, plenty of top growth, but most are long and stringy and no bulb. Have used compost and fertilizer, but nothing seems to help. The key is sunshine. Without sunshine, all you will get is tops, and all the compost and fertilizer does is simply aggravate the situation. A question from Spokane, Washington. Will you please tell me the best way to propagate black raspberries? Well, we dug up a plant from home to show you what they look like and talk about their life cycle. The black raspberry sends up a cane one year, produces fruit that year, and then that cane dies. This is a fruiting cane for this year. And I want you to see the arching habit of the cane, and that is the key to propagation. Over here are some wilted young canes coming up from next year. When your young cane makes an arch such as this, lay it on the ground and put a stone on it about 4 or 5 inches from the end. That tissue will change, roots will form, and you then cut it off next spring and you'll have another plant. That's the only way that I know of to propagate black raspberries. From Jacksonville, Florida, my 10-year-old wisteria vine has never bloomed. Can you tell me why? We live in a sandy area but have fruit trees which bear and dogwoods which blossom. Well, I would say That wisteria is probably so happy with all the fertilizer and moisture it's getting, it has no inclination to blossom. What you should do is check the new growth as it comes out of a stem and cut each new stem back to 2 leaves. That, I think, will give you blossoms, but not the first year. It will be the second year before you get blossoms. From Warwick, Rhode Island. 2 years ago, I transplanted peonies from my father's yard. The first year, they only grew to be 1 foot tall. Some are 2 feet tall, but they're still not flowering. What am I doing wrong, and is there any hope of flowers? Let me give you a couple of tips on peonies. They must have sunshine, and that could be your problem, but I don't think it is your problem. I think what you did when you transplanted them was to set them too deeply in the soil. The proper time to move peonies is in the fall, usually in September. You'll find buds about 2 inches long growing from the roots, even at that time of year. When you dig your plants up this fall and reset them so that those buds are no more than 2 inches deep, that's the real secret to making peonies blossom. By the way, a good fertilizer for peonies is bone meal, a good double handful of scattered around the plants in the springtime will fertilize them right through the season. Would you please tell me the best way to cover dwarf cherry trees and blueberry bushes to protect them from the birds? Well, at home what I use is some black plastic mesh, which you can buy at any garden center. I've had mine for 10 years or more, and it's still perfectly good. And it's very frustrating to see those blue jays sit on top of the blueberry bushes and scold me because they think those blueberries were grown just for them. From Barrington Hills, Illinois, we use gypsum to soften the soil. We're wondering if this substance is harmful to plants and humans. No, it is not. It provides calcium to soils which are already alkaline, and it helps clay soils have a better structure for root growth. Well, that's all I have time for today, but next week I'm going to show you how to grow cyclamens from seeds. I'm going to be planting another planting of carrots and beets, and then I'm going to show you how to prune tomato plants that are on stakes so that you'll get a big crop of early tomatoes. Well, I'm Jim Crockett in Crockett's Victory Garden. I hope you enjoy the program every week.